Hi friends, today we are going to discuss about Python script to connect Oracle data source and extract data. So if you follow the slides, you can see how the implementation has been done. So basically I'm using class object approach, the OOPS concept in Python. For data analysis purpose, I have performed using pandas library. Basically the process involved to connect the database and extract it, data analysis, generate the CSV file. Once all these steps have been covered, and finally you will be closing the connection after the process. So let us get involved in how the data flow or the program flow goes through. So, okay, so this next slides will give you an idea about how the program flows. Basically the class object initially will be loaded with the config information. Based on the config information, the class will be initialized in the constructor using the config information already set as a global variable. Okay, once that is been set, you are ready for connecting the database or closing the database and calling the other respective methods inside the class. Okay, so the first method we are going to call is called connect. Okay, so when we connect it, so basically what will happen, the DB available or not, it will be checked, and if the DB is not available, it will be closed and the process will be end. If the DB is available, okay, it will be extract the data. Okay, and based on the data availability, okay, so the data will be uh, generated as CSV file, and finally will be closing the process, and thus this program completes. Okay, so let's jump into the program implementation. So basically I've written a Python code using Visual Studio Code. So as I said, the class approach, class object approach. So if you see here from the beginning, I'm using this is the basic library. I'm using it base 64 to decode whatever I encoded in the config file. For example, password for security reason, I have encoded in ASCII method. So using this site you can do for a testing purpose I have done. So and Oracle DB, this is the library to connect the Oracle database. I've installed this library, and for data analysis purpose this pandas library is being used for. This is the very basic and common, and it's very well used for across data analysis purpose. Okay, so and when I start with this class, this is what the class I have defined, and this is the constructor. Any class object will begin with the new uninitiate init method for as you know. So this init method you can define all the constructor information. Basically here what happened, I'm defining host, port, DB information, user information, and password information. So and this is the config method which I explained before. So I'm defining as a global variable all the global variables so that it can be passed to the constructor here. Okay, so and this department number and connection, this is been referred in the config file, and connection also will be using for connecting time. So hence this is not part of the constructor initialization. Okay, so let's jump into config method here. This config parser, this is nothing but it's coming from this library. Okay, so this config parser method we have been using under which you can see the read method to load the file. This config oracle.ini file, you can understand these are the information. This is the section, database section I've defined. Under this database section, these are the key and value or correspondingly different, like host name, database name, port name, username, and password. As I mentioned before, this password already encoded. I have given the site how to encode it. So then the DP number is nothing but in the query we are going to bind this DP number. Okay, so now see, this is how so the host information, DB, port, username information we are getting straightforward, but only the password, like I mentioned, we are getting the password initially whatever encoded, then we are decoding And again, when you are decoding, you cannot straight away, you cannot use it. So you have to convert to ASCII method, and finally we can make use of the password file. And like I mentioned, this DP number we are going to bind when we are calling the execute command. So that I'm going to describe shortly. Okay, so now coming to this connect method, this self object coming from the constructor. So whatever the value you have been already loaded from part of config method, this will be loaded. The constructor string will be formed, and this based on the constructor string formed will be passing on to Oracle DB library connect method. Once the connection is successfully established, you will see the message database connected successfully. In case if there is any exception, it will be raised an exception DB issue. And similarly, yeah, once the process completed, so finally we are going to call this method the close method will be called to close the DB connection. Okay, and this is the execute query method. This is the method we are going to use it for whatever the once the DB being connected, if we are going to call means define the cursor, and we are going to execute the query whatever you defined it. Okay, here basically the self the constructor information will be passed through self, and the query information, the second argument, will be passed in the query means a cursor query to execute. Then we are collecting the column information from the cursor thing, and we are going to bind it along with the data result. So put together column and data results, finally it will be placed into result. Okay, and it will be written in part of this execute query method. Okay, in case of any error, it will be raising an exception here. Okay, and finally get data method. This method post means like here only the actual query what we are framing it. And like I mentioned, the DP number which we already collecting as a bind variable, this is coming here. And this execute query method, previously I explained it with the query whatever we defined in line number 75 will be passed it, and the number of rows will be written. Once this get data method written, then based on that the result set, we are going to convert the result into list, because as I mentioned before, we are using pandas library. So in pandas library data frame, we are going to use it to convert a results list result set. Okay, then this data frame is been created. Then we are converting to display. For only for display purpose, I am using this index is false to ignore the index column. That is the running number by default that data frame will produce. We only require the specific data results information. That is the reason line number 82 you see that. Then finally line number 83 you can see the actual CSV conversion part of pandas library itself. They are giving this thing. Okay, so I'm hard coding the emp CSV, the file name, and what is the separator, that is the delimiter, and what type of encoding you want to do it. This is the standard across. So UTF-8 and index, again the index column, the running number I'm ignoring, and header I make sure that that is the column information I want to produce it. Since it is not returning anything, and I'm just giving this method as pass. Okay, that's the thing. And this main method part of any class object, we can call like this is the standard thing. So when we are loading the class object in the Python, this is how we can do it. So then line number 89, this is the first step. As I mentioned before, the config data loading of configuration data has been taken care part of this method. So whatever and it is assigned in the global variable. So once that global variable information collected, then the actual class object invoked in and the global variable information assigned to this class object, and the corresponding constructor being called here. Okay, and hence then the rest of the method can get the corresponding values assigned part of the self information from the constructor. Okay, the connect method being invoked and verified that DB is available, and it will successfully connect to the database. Once the database is successfully connected, and line number 103 to the extraction of data process starts here, and it will return the results here. Okay, then the CSV method being called passing the results information. That result information, like I mentioned, it will be converted to list, and the data frame will take care of producing the results. So then finally all steps have been completed successfully. The final step of closing the database will happen and the program hence completed successfully. Okay, let's try to run this program and see what is the results now. Okay, so let me run the program here. Okay, so basically we are binding the variable with department number 80. So hence you see the results for the department number 80 specific employee information. If you go and see here employee information 80 close to what to say 34 records including header records, you'll see 35. Okay, let us try to change the department number. Instead of 80, let me change it to 50 and see. Let's try to rerun the program again. You see the results means now the binding variable changed to 50, and then the department number automatically concatenate with 50 and pass to get the results accordingly. And if you go back to see the results, so see it's reflected now. Okay, so now close to 45 records for this particular department, including the header, it will be 46 records. Okay, so this is the quick introduction about Python script to connect the Oracle database and data extraction, how to achieve it using class object approach. Okay, OOPS concept. Okay, hope this video really helpful. In case of any queries, please feel free to reach me out. Thanks for watching my video. Please subscribe my channel. Thank you.